I spent all afternoon getting ready for that dinner at Bellini's, the upscale Italian place in downtown Boston, where my son Michael had insisted we meet. 3 outfit changes later, I settled on my navy silk blouse with a simple pearl necklace. Elegant, but not trying too hard. That's what I kept telling myself in the mirror. Don't try too hard, Nancy, or they'll think you're desperate for approval. 6 months ago, Michael had called with news that he'd eloped with Vanessa, a woman he'd been dating for just under a year. I'd only met her twice, once at Christmas, where she spent most of the evening on her phone, and again at a quick coffee where she seemed perpetually bored. But I was determined to make this work. After losing Jack to cancer 3 years ago, Michael was all the family I had left. It's just dinner, I reassured myself, applying one last touch of lipstick before heading out. How bad could it be? The restaurant was buzzing when I arrived, all warm lighting and the rich aroma of garlic and wine. I spotted them immediately. Michael, Vanessa, and to my surprise, Vanessa's parents, whom I'd never met. They were seated at a long table near the window, already sipping cocktails. I smoothed my slacks and approached with a practiced smile. That's when I noticed something odd. Vanessa leaned toward a man in a dark blazer, clearly restaurant security, and whispered something while glancing in my direction. The man frowned, nodded, and started walking toward me. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said quietly, his eyes not quite meeting mine. "I'm sorry, but I've been informed that there's an issue with an uninvited, elderly woman attempting to join a private party." My heart stopped. Elderly. I was 62, hardly ancient. And uninvited. This dinner was Michael's idea. Before I could respond, Vanessa's voice cut through the restaurant noise like a knife. "Can you please get that poor old woman away from our table? She's making everyone uncomfortable." The entire restaurant seemed to freeze. Heads turned, conversations halted. And there I was, standing perfectly still, my handbag clutched against my chest, humiliation burning through me like wildfire. I looked at Michael, waiting for him to stand up, to say something, anything. He met my eyes briefly, then looked down at his plate. His silence cut deeper than Vanessa's words ever could. I didn't make a scene. I didn't cry. I simply turned on my heel and walked out with my head held high, even as my hands trembled and my chest tightened with each step. The valet looked concerned as he brought my car around, but I tipped him generously and drove away. It wasn't until I was safely in my brownstone on Marlborough Street that I allowed myself to feel the full weight of what had happened. But it wasn't just hurt that washed over me. It was rage, cold and clarifying. Vanessa had no idea who she'd just humiliated. I kicked off my heels and went straight to my home office. I powered up my laptop and logged into the company server. As CEO of Northeastern Dynamics, one of Boston's largest marketing firms with over 2,000 employees, I had access to everything. And Vanessa Bradley, my new daughter-in-law, had just become an employee 6 months ago, after much lobbying from Michael. "She's brilliant, Mom," he'd insisted. "She just needs a foot in the door." I'd agreed then, thinking it would be a way to welcome her to the family. I remembered signing off on her hiring paperwork myself, placing her in the digital marketing department, far enough from my executive floor that we wouldn't cross paths often. Now, I pulled up her employee file and began to read. As the night deepened around me, my anger didn't fade. It crystallized into something harder, more focused. She had no idea who she'd declared war on. Her poor old woman was about to show her exactly what decades of business experience could do when properly motivated. I didn't want revenge. I wanted a lesson taught, and Vanessa was about to become the student. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I poured myself a glass of Jack's favorite Macallan and started digging. Vanessa's employee file was a goldmine of mediocrity. She'd been hired as a junior content strategist, but her performance reviews were lukewarm at best. Show's potential appeared multiple times. Corporate speak for, "not terrible enough to fire yet." What struck me most was her attendance record. She'd called in sick 8 times in 6 months, with several half-days and late arrivals scattered throughout. Our badge system showed her regularly arriving after 9:30, despite her 9 start time. Nothing egregious enough to warrant termination on its own. But a pattern was emerging. I picked up my phone and texted Tom Davidson, our HR director and one of my oldest friends at the company. Need to chat about a performance issue first thing tomorrow. My office, 7:30? His response came quickly. Of course, Nancy. Everything okay? Just doing some housekeeping, I replied. Tom arrived the next morning with coffee for both of us, a ritual we'd maintained for over 15 years. I took a sip and got straight to the point. What can you tell me about Vanessa Bradley in digital marketing? Tom's eyebrows rose slightly. Michael's wife? Not much personally, seems to keep to herself. Why? I'd like a discreet performance review. Nothing official yet. Just gather some feedback from her supervisors and colleagues. Tom nodded. No questions asked. That's why I valued him. He understood when something was personal, but didn't pry. I'll have something for you by end of day, he promised. While waiting for Tom's report, I called Linda Barnes, the digital marketing director. She was surprised to hear from me directly. We usually only crossed paths at quarterly reviews. Linda, I'm conducting an audit of newer hires across departments. How's Vanessa Bradley working out? Linda's hesitation told me everything before she even spoke. She's adapting, has some creative ideas but struggles with follow-through, takes feedback personally. I've had to reassign some of her projects when deadlines were at risk. Any issues with team dynamics? I pressed. Another pause. She's had some conflicts with the junior staff. Nothing major, but there have been complaints about her delegating her work to them. By the time Tom delivered his report that afternoon, I had spoken with 3 more people. The picture was consistent. Vanessa was entitled, difficult, and trading on being Michael Harrington's wife whenever possible. She took extended lunches, submitted work late, and had made at least 2 assistants cry. Tom's report only confirmed what I already knew. He'd included anonymous comments from her colleagues, takes credit for group work, dismissive of constructive criticism, treats support staff like personal assistants, often mentions her family connections to the company. I closed the file and looked out my office window at the Boston skyline. The Prudential Center gleamed in the afternoon sun, reminding me of all I'd built over 30 years, starting as a secretary with a marketing degree from UMass, working my way up while raising Michael alone after Jack's early death from cancer. No one had handed me anything. My intercom buzzed. Ms. Harrington? Facilities on line 2. Something about a resignation in maintenance. I picked up the phone. Bob from Facilities explained that one of the building's janitors had quit without notice, leaving them short-staffed. We'll be scrambling for at least 2 weeks until we can hire someone new. He sighed. A plan began forming in my mind, elegant in its simplicity. Bob, hold off on that job posting. I think I might have a temporary solution for you. That evening, Michael called. I let it go to voicemail. He called again, and again. Finally, I picked up. Mom, about last night. Michael, I'm in the middle of something important. I cut him off. We can talk later. But Vanessa feels terrible. She thought you were some random woman trying to crash our dinner. She didn't recognize you in that lighting. The excuse was as flimsy as tissue paper. Did you correct her mistake? His silence was answer enough. That's what I thought. I need to go now. I have an early meeting tomorrow. I hung up and returned to my laptop. With a few keystrokes, I drafted a memo about an immediate organizational restructuring affecting select employees based on performance metrics and company needs. I marked it for distribution at 8 a.m. sharp. As I finally headed to bed around midnight, I felt strangely peaceful. In business, as in life, timing was everything. And Vanessa Bradley was about to learn that timing and karma could be absolutely perfect. I arrived at the office at 7:15 the next morning. Boston was still waking up, the early summer sun casting long shadows between the downtown buildings. I nodded to security as I swept through the lobby, taking the executive elevator directly to the top floor. By 7:45, I was at my desk, watching the clock and sipping my coffee with unusual anticipation. At precisely 8 a.m., the system sent out my memo. I had carefully crafted it to be both vague and specific, a masterpiece of corporate communication that said everything and nothing at once. The key part read, "Due to internal restructuring and performance-based reassessment, The following employees will be temporarily reassigned effective immediately. Vanessa Bradley, Digital Marketing, Building Maintenance Support. I copied Tom from HR, Bob from Facilities, and Linda from Digital Marketing. I knew company protocol well enough to make this completely legitimate. We had the right to reassign any employee during their first year based on operational needs. I'd done everything by the book. Within minutes, my phone lit up. It was Linda. "Nancy, I just got your memo. Is this some kind of mistake? You're moving Vanessa to janitor duty?" "It's a temporary reassignment based on departmental needs," I replied coolly. "We're short-staffed in maintenance, and based on performance reviews, she was identified as the most suitable candidate for temporary transfer." "But it's all above board, Linda. HR has approved it." "Not technically a lie." Tom wouldn't question me. "Please ensure her current projects are reassigned appropriately." I hung up and waited. By 8:45, my assistant Margaret buzzed me. "Ms. Harrington, Michael is trying to reach you. He's called 3 times in the last 10 minutes. "I'm in meetings all morning, Margaret. Take messages." From my office window, I had a perfect view of the main entrance. At 9:27, late again, Vanessa's red BMW pulled into the parking lot. I watched as she hurried toward the building, designer handbag swinging from her arm, completely unaware of what awaited her. I imagined her seeing the printed memo posted at security, as was standard practice for company-wide announcements. I pictured her face as she scanned for her name and found it under Building Maintenance Support. The confusion, the disbelief, the fury. Sure enough, at 9:52, Margaret buzzed again. "Ms. Harrington, there's a situation at reception. Vanessa Bradley is demanding to speak with HR and the CEO immediately. She's causing quite a scene. Have security escort her to HR. Tom knows what to do." Tom would follow protocol perfectly. He would explain that the reassignment was temporary but mandatory, that refusing would be considered resignation without notice, and that all proper procedures had been followed with CEO approval. He would not mention that I was her mother-in-law. As far as the company knew, I had never met her outside of work. Michael had been careful to keep our connection quiet, wanting Vanessa to succeed on her own merits. At 10:30, my desk phone rang. It was Bob from Facilities. "Ms. Harrington, we've got your, new temporary staff member down here. She's refusing to change into the maintenance uniform and says there's been a mistake. Is Tom there?" "Yes, ma'am." "Put him on." Tom's voice came through, professional as always, despite the unusual circumstances. "Nancy, I've explained the situation. Ms. Bradley is resistant. Put me on speaker, please." I heard a click, then the muffled sounds of the maintenance department basement, the hum of the building's HVAC system, distant voices. "Ms. Bradley," I said, using my most authoritative CEO voice. "This is Nancy Harrington. I understand there's confusion about your reassignment. Let me be clear. This is a direct order from the executive level. You have 2 choices. Accept the temporary reassignment effective immediately or tender your resignation. Which will it be?" A long silence followed. Then Vanessa's voice, tight with barely controlled rage. "This is completely inappropriate. I was hired for marketing, not cleaning toilets. Your contract states that you may be reassigned based on company needs during your probationary period. You are still within that period. Again, what is your decision?" Another long pause. I could almost feel her weighing her options, realizing she had none. "Fine," she finally spat out, "but I want it noted that I'm doing this under protest." "Duly noted. Bob will get you situated with your new responsibilities." I hung up and leaned back in my chair, a sense of grim satisfaction settling over me. From my window, I could see all of downtown Boston sprawled before me. The financial district, the harbor in the distance, the bustling streets. I had built this view for myself over decades of hard work. No one had ever handed me anything. Later that afternoon, I took a rare trip down to the lower levels of the building. Ostensibly, I was checking on some renovation work, but my real purpose was different. As I rounded a corner near the mailroom, I saw her, Vanessa, dressed in blue maintenance coveralls, awkwardly pushing a cleaning cart. Her hair was pulled back, her makeup gone, her expression a mask of humiliation. She didn't recognize me at first. When she did, she froze, suddenly uncertain whether I knew who she was outside of work. I gave her a brief, impersonal nod, the kind reserved for employees several levels below my notice, and continued walking. That evening, Michael called again. This time, I let it go straight to voicemail. His message was a jumble of confusion and anger. "Mom, what the hell is going on at your company? Vanessa came home crying. She said she's been demoted to janitor. This has to be some kind of mistake. Call me back immediately." I deleted the message and poured myself another Macallan, raising my glass in a silent toast to Jack. "You always said karma comes around, darling," I murmured to the empty room. "You just never specified who might give it a little push." The next morning, I arrived at the office even earlier than usual. The sky was still dark over Boston Harbor as I reviewed the maintenance schedule Bob had sent me. Vanessa was assigned to the third floor that day, marketing and sales, where many of her former colleagues worked. Perfect. I tried to focus on quarterly projections, but my mind kept drifting to the floor below. Around 10, I decided to take a walk. I told Margaret I needed coffee from the third floor break room. The executive floor had better coffee, but she didn't question me. When the elevator doors opened, I immediately heard whispers. 2 young marketing associates fell silent as I passed, their eyes following me before darting toward the women's restroom. I nodded cordially and continued to the break room, where I took my time pouring coffee I didn't want. Through the glass walls, I spotted her. Vanessa was mopping near the conference room, her movements stiff and awkward. She'd clearly never cleaned professionally before. Her face was flushed, eyes downcast, as former teammates walked past without acknowledgement. Some pretended not to see her. Others stared openly, curiosity and schadenfreude poorly disguised. I walked back toward the elevator, deliberately passing close to where she worked. She glanced up, saw me, and quickly looked away. But not before I caught the flash of uncertainty in her eyes. Did I know? Did I remember her from the restaurant? Was I the mother-in-law she'd humiliated, or just the CEO who'd inexplicably demoted her? "Good morning," I said crisply, the way I might acknowledge any maintenance staff. "Good morning, Ms. Harrington," she mumbled, keeping her eyes on the floor she was mopping. I paused, looked pointedly at a spot she'd missed, and moved on without comment. The power dynamic couldn't have been clearer if I'd spelled it out. Back in my office, I found 3 missed calls from Michael and a text. "Mom, we need to talk. This has gone far enough." I replied simply, "In meetings all day, business matters." That afternoon, Linda from digital marketing came to see me. She closed my office door behind her, looking troubled. "Nancy, people are talking. Everyone knows Vanessa is Michael's wife. This reassignment, it seems personal." I raised an eyebrow. "Does anyone know she's my daughter-in-law?" "Not officially, but there are rumors." "Rumors aren't facts, Linda. The reassignment was based on performance and company needs. Her relationship to Michael, or anyone else, is irrelevant." Linda shifted uncomfortably. "She was seen crying in the supply closet yesterday." "That's unfortunate," I said, returning my attention to my computer. "Was there anything else?" After Linda left, I pulled up the company messaging system. Sure enough, the chat channels were buzzing with speculation. Most people had no idea about my connection to Vanessa, but they were fascinated by her dramatic fall from marketing specialist to janitor. Some defended her, suggesting it was unfair. Others shared stories of her past behavior, the time she took credit for Jacob's campaign idea, how she belittled the new intern until the girl quit, her constant name-dropping and extended lunches. I closed the chat. Justice was being served in ways I hadn't even planned. For the next week, I made it my business to cross paths with Vanessa at least once a day. Sometimes in the hallway, sometimes in the break room, once in the parking garage. Each time, I acknowledged her with cool professionalism, never betraying any personal recognition. Each time, she seemed smaller, more uncertain. By day 5, she had stopped wearing makeup altogether. Her designer clothes had been replaced by simple jeans and t-shirts under her uniform. No point ruining good clothes on cleaning duty. Her once immaculate manicure was chipped and damaged from cleaning chemicals. She walked with her shoulders hunched, eyes down, as if trying to become invisible. On day 8, I scheduled an executive floor deep cleaning. Bob asked if we could postpone it as they were short-staffed. "Who's available?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Just the new one. Bradley. She'll do. The next morning, Vanessa arrived on the 12th floor with her cleaning cart. The executive floor was different. Plush carpeting, wood-paneled walls, fresh flowers daily. My office sat at the end of the main hallway, glass-walled with a view of the harbor, my name etched on the door. Nancy Harrington, Chief Executive Officer. I watched through my office windows as she slowly made her way down the hall, cleaning each executive office methodically. When she reached mine, I pretended to be engrossed in a report. She knocked timidly. "Come in," I called without looking up. She entered and began emptying my trash bins. I could feel her eyes taking in the photos on my credenza, one of Michael at his college graduation, another of Jack and me on our 20th anniversary. I saw the moment realization dawned, the slight stumble, the sharp intake of breath. She knew. She finally knew. I looked up, met her eyes directly for the first time since the restaurant incident. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The message was clear. I remembered everything. Vanessa's hands trembled as she finished her tasks. As she turned to leave, I finally spoke. "The executive restroom needs attention. It hasn't been properly cleaned in days." It was a lie. The executive restroom was immaculate. But she nodded wordlessly and wheeled her cart toward it. Later, Margaret buzzed me. "Ms. Harrington, your son has called 4 times in the last hour. He sounds upset. Tell him I'm in budget meetings all day," I replied. "I'll call when I'm free." That evening, as I was leaving, I passed the maintenance office. Vanessa was turning in her supplies, head bowed, movements mechanical. Our eyes met briefly. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something. Recognition, perhaps even remorse, but it was gone before I could be sure. I drove home through the rain, wondering if the lesson had been learned yet. Somehow, I doubted it. Some people need to fall much further before they truly understand. By the beginning of the 3rd week, the situation had become the elephant in the room at home and at work. Michael had stopped calling, instead showing up unannounced at my Marlborough Street brownstone on Sunday evening. I was in my garden when I heard his key in the lock. "This has to stop, Mom," he said without preamble, finding me among my hydrangeas. His face was drawn, dark circles under his eyes. Vanessa hasn't slept in days. I continued pruning, snipping off a wilted bloom. "What exactly are you referring to?" "You know damn well what," he snapped. "Vanessa. The janitor thing. It's cruel and it's beneath you." I set down my shears and faced him. "Has she told you why I might have done this?" Michael faltered. "She said there was some misunderstanding at dinner, that she thought you were someone else." "A poor old woman," I quoted. "An uninvited elderly woman to be removed from your table. That's what your wife called me, Michael, in public, while you sat there and said nothing." He at least had the decency to look ashamed. I froze. I didn't know what to do. "Well, now you know how it feels when someone you care about is humiliated and you do nothing to stop it. So, this is what? Revenge?" I picked up my gardening basket. "This is a business decision based on performance and company needs. Vanessa is an underperforming employee who has been temporarily reassigned. If she doesn't like it, she's welcome to resign." "She tried to resign. HR rejected it." "Did they?" I raised an eyebrow. "That's standard procedure during a probationary reassessment period. Company policy." Michael ran his hands through his hair. A gesture so like his father, it made my heart ache despite my anger. "Mom, please. She's my wife. Can't you just accept her apology and move on?" "Has she apologized?" He hesitated. "She's going to." "I see." I walked past him toward the house. "When she does, I'll consider it." The next morning, I arrived at work to find Tom waiting in my office, looking uncomfortable. "We have a situation," he said, closing the door behind him. "Vanessa Bradley filed a formal complaint with HR this morning. She's alleging targeted harassment and hostile work environment." I set down my coffee. "On what grounds?" "She claims you specifically chose her for the maintenance reassignment because of a personal vendetta. She says you're her mother-in-law and that this is retaliation for some incident at a family dinner." "Interesting," I said, keeping my voice level. "And what evidence does she have of this supposed connection?" Tom shifted. None documented. She claims your son Michael will confirm the relationship. I see. And has HR reached out to Michael Harrington to verify this claim? Not yet. I wanted to speak with you first. I leaned back in my chair. Tom, you've known me for 15 years. If I had a daughter-in-law working in this company, don't you think you'd know about it? He nodded slowly. That's what I thought. Ms. Bradley was reassigned based on documented performance issues and departmental needs. Her reassignment was processed exactly like any other internal transfer. There was nothing personal about it. So you're saying she's lying about being related to you? I chose my words carefully. I'm saying that any claims about personal relationships influencing business decisions should be dismissed as unfounded unless documented proof is provided. And even if such a relationship existed, the reassignment was still procedurally correct and based on legitimate business factors. Tom looked relieved. I'll handle it. After he left, I checked my personal email. There was a message from Michael with urgent in the subject line. I deleted it without reading. Whatever he had to say could wait. That afternoon, Bob called from facilities. Ms. Harrington, Bradley didn't show up today. No call, no notice. Document it as an unexcused absence, I instructed. If she doesn't appear tomorrow, that's grounds for termination. But she did appear the next day. I watched from my window as she trudged across the parking lot at 8:57, shoulders slumped. Even from 12 floors up, I could see the defeat in her posture. Around noon, Margaret buzzed me. Ms. Harrington, there's an envelope for you. No sender, but security confirmed it was dropped off by Ms. Bradley from maintenance. Bring it in. The envelope was plain white, my name handwritten on the front. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a formal letter of resignation, effective immediately. At the bottom, in a shaky hand, she had added, I understand now. I'm sorry for what I did. Please don't punish Michael for my mistake. I folded the letter and placed it in my desk drawer. Then I called Tom. The Bradley situation is resolved. She's resigned. Should I process it? I paused, considering. No, reject it. Reject it? Tom sounded confused. On what grounds? Contractual obligations. She's required to give 2 weeks' notice or complete her reassignment period, whichever is longer. Nancy, Tom's voice was hesitant. Are you sure about this? It seems it's company policy, Tom. We don't make exceptions. That evening, as I was leaving, I found another envelope slipped under my office door. This one contained 3 pages of handwritten text, the ink smudged in places as if by tears. Dear Mrs. Harrington, it began. I don't know how to apologize for what I did at the restaurant. It was inexcusable. I didn't recognize you, but that's no excuse for how I treated anyone. The truth is, I've been terrified of not fitting in with Michael's family. You're so accomplished, so polished. I felt inadequate, so I lashed out. These past weeks have taught me what it feels like to be looked down on, to be invisible. I understand now what I did to you. I'm begging for your forgiveness, not as an employee, but as the woman who loves your son. Please don't let my mistake ruin your relationship with Michael. He misses you. I'll accept whatever consequences you think are fair, but please don't push him away because of me. I read it twice, then fed it into my shredder, watching as the pages became ribbons. The apology seemed genuine, but it had come only after consequences, not before. That wasn't true remorse. It was just regret at being caught. As I drove home, my phone rang. It was Michael again. This time I answered. Mom. His voice was raw. Vanessa tried to quit today and they wouldn't let her. This has gone far enough. Has it? I asked quietly. Has she learned anything, Michael? Really learned? She's breaking down. She cries herself to sleep every night. She can barely look me in the eye. Whatever point you were trying to make, you've made it. I sighed. 1 more week, then we'll talk. Mom, 1 week, Michael. Some lessons take time to sink in. I hung up and continued driving, wondering if I'd gone too far. But then I remembered the restaurant, the humiliation, the security guard, the stairs. No, the lesson wasn't quite complete yet. Almost, but not quite. The final week unfolded with a quiet inevitability. Vanessa continued her maintenance duties without complaint, moving through the building like a ghost. Employees who had initially gossiped about her downfall now barely seemed to notice her presence. She had become part of the background, invisible in the way service workers often are to corporate professionals. I observed her from a distance, noting the changes. The designer handbags were gone, replaced by a simple canvas tote. Her once meticulous appearance had given way to practical simplicity. Hair pulled back, minimal makeup, sensible shoes. She spoke softly to everyone, offering help rather than demands, staying late without complaint. On Wednesday, I received a call from Janet, who ran the mailroom. "Ms. Harrington, I just wanted to let you know that Vanessa from maintenance has been wonderful with Tommy." Tommy was Janet's son, a young man with Down syndrome who worked part-time sorting mail. "How so?" I asked. "He spilled a whole cart of packages yesterday, and she spent her lunch break helping him reorganize everything. Didn't make him feel bad about it either. Just chatted with him and got it done." I thanked Janet for the information and made a note in my calendar. On Thursday, Bob from facilities reported that Vanessa had volunteered to cover an evening shift when one of the regular night cleaners had a family emergency. She'd stayed until 11 p.m., ensuring the building was ready for an important client meeting the next morning. "Never seen a reassigned employee take to the job like that," Bob commented. "Almost a shame she's only temporary." I nodded thoughtfully. Indeed. On Friday, her final day of reassignment, I watched from my office as Vanessa methodically cleaned the executive floor for the last time. There was a different quality to her movements now, a care and thoroughness that hadn't been there before. When she reached my office, I called her in. "Ms. Bradley," I said formally, "please close the door." She complied, standing before my desk with her hands clasped, eyes downcast. "Your reassignment period ends today," I began. "I've reviewed the reports from facilities, and they speak highly of your work ethic these past few weeks." She nodded slightly but remained silent. "Before you return to marketing, I'd like to ask you something." I leaned forward. "What have you learned during this time?" She looked up then, meeting my eyes directly for the first time in weeks. The entitled coldness I'd seen at the restaurant was gone, replaced by something quieter, more reflective. "I've learned that how you treat people matters," she said softly. "All people, not just the ones you think are important. I've learned what it feels like to be invisible, to have people look through you instead of at you. I've learned that the work I thought was beneath me is actually essential, and the people who do it deserve respect." She paused, swallowing hard. "And I've learned that I was cruel to you that night at Bellini's. Not just rude, cruel. I can't undo it, but I am truly sorry, Mrs. Harrington." I studied her face, looking for any sign of insincerity, any calculation behind the apology. I found none. "Thank you, Ms. Bradley. You may return to marketing on Monday. I've spoken with Linda about transitioning you back into the department." Relief washed over her face. "Thank you. One more thing," I added as she turned to leave. "This experience stays within these walls. I don't expect to hear it discussed at family gatherings or holidays. As far as I'm concerned, what happened at the restaurant and what happened here are now closed chapters." She nodded quickly. "Of course." After she left, I sat for a long time looking out at the Boston skyline. The afternoon light glinted off the harbor, reminding me of that night 3 weeks ago when I'd driven home in humiliation. Had I gone too far? Perhaps. But sometimes lessons needed to cut deep to truly take hold. I picked up my phone and called Michael. "Dinner at my place tomorrow. Just you." "Is it over?" he asked immediately. "Yes," I replied. "It's over." The next evening, Michael arrived with a bottle of my favorite Cabernet and an uncertain expression. I welcomed him with a hug, feeling the tension in his shoulders. "Mom, Let's not start there," I interrupted, taking the wine. "Tell me about that new project you mentioned last month, the Sustainable Housing Initiative." Relief flooded his face. We spent the evening talking about his work, his plans, everything but the situation with Vanessa. It wasn't until dessert, apple crisp, his childhood favorite, that he finally broached the subject. "She's changed, Mom. Whatever you did, it changed her." I sipped my wine. "People rarely change without reason. She wants to make things right. Will you let her try?" I considered his question. That depends on her, not me. 3 weeks later, we had our answer. I hosted Sunday dinner at my brownstone, the first family gathering since the restaurant incident. Michael arrived first, helping me with last-minute preparations. When the doorbell rang at exactly 5, he went to answer it. Vanessa stood on the threshold, looking nervous but composed. She carried a homemade casserole and a small gift bag. "Thank you for having me, Mrs. Harrington," she said formally. "Nancy," I corrected her. "We're family, after all." Dinner was surprisingly pleasant. Vanessa was attentive, asking thoughtful questions about my garden, my work with the Boston Women's Business Alliance, my plans for the brownstone's renovation. Not once did she mention her job or the past few weeks. As Michael cleared the dessert plates, Vanessa handed me the gift bag. Inside was a small, elegant silver frame containing a photo I'd never seen before. Jack and me on our wedding day, laughing as we fed each other cake. "Michael found it in his old albums," she explained quietly. "I thought you might like to have it." I traced Jack's smiling face with my fingertip. "Thank you. This is very thoughtful." She hesitated, then added, "I know I can't undo what happened, but I hope someday you'll be able to see me as more than that terrible moment." I looked at her, really looked at her. The entitlement and arrogance were gone. In their place was something humbler, more genuine. Whether it would last remained to be seen, but it was a start. "Time will tell," I said simply. The following week, I received a performance update from Linda. Vanessa had returned to marketing with a completely different attitude, collaborative, diligent, respectful of deadlines and colleagues alike. She came in early, stayed late when needed, and had even volunteered to mentor 2 new interns. "Whatever happened during her reassignment," Linda wrote, "it's like we got back a different employee, in the best possible way." I closed the email with a small smile. Some might call what I did cruel or vindictive. They might say I abused my power, that I went too far to teach a lesson. Perhaps they're right. But I've never believed in half measures, not in business, not in life, and certainly not in justice. 2 months later, at Christmas dinner in my home, I watched as Vanessa helped in the kitchen, laughed with Michael, and handled my antique china with care. When she raised her glass for a toast, her eyes met mine with genuine warmth. "To family," she said, "and to second chances." I nodded and raised my glass in return. "To lessons learned." Michael looked between us, confused but relieved that some understanding had been reached. He would never know the full story, what had happened at the restaurant, or what had followed. That remained between Vanessa and me, a private reckoning that had reshaped our relationship. As the evening wound down, I found myself alone with Vanessa in the kitchen. She was carefully wrapping leftover pie, her movements precise and thoughtful. "You know," I said conversationally, "there's an assistant manager position opening in marketing next quarter. Linda mentioned you might be a good candidate, given your recent performance." She looked up, surprised. "Really? Thank you for telling me." "Don't thank me," I replied. "You've earned the consideration on your own merits." And that was the truth. The woman who had once been content to coast on my son's connections had found her own work ethic, her own voice. The lesson had been harsh, perhaps, but effective. Some would call it revenge. I preferred to think of it as education, expensive but thorough. In business, as in family, respect couldn't be demanded. It had to be earned. Vanessa had finally learned that lesson, and our family was stronger for it. As they left that night, I kissed Michael goodbye and for the first time, embraced Vanessa as well. "Merry Christmas," I said. "See you for New Year's Eve." I watched them drive away, snow beginning to fall softly over Marlborough Street. Inside, I poured myself a nightcap and raised it to Jack's photograph on the mantel. "Mission accomplished, darling," I murmured. "She'll do right by him now." And in the quiet of my home, surrounded by the life I'd built through determination and grit, I finally felt peace.